A child who managed to kill her rapist is now being ordered to pay restitution to his family. This is a very graphic and heavy situation, so scroll down if you need to. In early 2020, 15-year-old Piper Lewis ran away from home. She said her adoptive mother was abusive. During that time, a lot of dangerous men took advantage of her situation, including 28-year-old Christopher Brown. Officials say he forcibly took her in and sex trafficked her to other men. At the time, she was just sleeping in the stairwell of his apartment. This man, Chris Brown, signed her up for dating websites and trafficked her to grown men for money. One of those men was 37-year-old Zachary Brooks. Piper didn't want anything to do with this man. That's when Brown held a knife to her throat and said that she had to. At this point, Zachary Brooks had already raped Piper several times in the weeks leading up to this moment. Piper was forced to drink and use other substances before he raped her again. When she awoke, she found a knife and stabbed Zachary Brooks 30 times, killing him. Piper is now 17 years old, and yesterday she was sentenced to 5 years of probation. She's also being placed at a women's residential facility where she has to wear a GPS tracking device. She is also required by Iowa's law to pay $150,000 to the family of the man that raped and abused her. Meanwhile, Chris Brown, the man who sex trafficked her, has not been charged at all. And this is just one of many examples proving that the justice system does not care about victims of sex trafficking, especially black and brown girls, and even if they are children. Good news is that a lot of people are rallying behind Piper. One of her teachers started a GoFundMe, and that goal has surpassed $280,000. However, her attorney still has to figure out if that money can even legally go towards her restitution. It's pretty clear that this law needs to change, to take into account victims of sex trafficking and rape.
Morbid Facts, Part 668. In 2019, Daniela Lace left a Marilyn Manson concert in Ontario while heavily intoxicated and drove the wrong way down a residential street, crashing into a home and rupturing a gas line. 15 minutes later, the house exploded, destroying 4 homes, injuring 7 people including first responders, and causing an estimated $10 to $15 million in damage. Lace was sentenced to 3 years in prison after pleading guilty to impaired driving causing bodily harm. In a bizarre twist, she and her father later sued the concert venue's alcohol vendor, claiming they were responsible for overseeing her and allowing her to drive drunk. The Bodies exhibit, which displays real human cadavers preserved through plastination, has long been shrouded in controversy due to allegations that many of the bodies were sourced from Chinese prisons without consent. Human rights groups believe that some of the corpses may belong to executed prisoners or political dissidents, including members of persecuted groups like Falun Gong. In 2008, the exhibit's parent company was forced to admit that it couldn't verify the origins of the bodies, posting a disclaimer that some remains may have come from Chinese prisoners. Visitors may unknowingly be viewing the dissected bodies of people who died under horrific conditions.
Gruesome Facts You Didn't Know, Part 145. In 1937, a natural gas leak caused an explosion that destroyed the London School in New London, Texas. The massive explosion claimed the lives of over 300 students and teachers. The event was so tragic that even Adolf Hitler paid his respects via telegram. Beagles are the most common breed of dog used for animal testing. This is because they are the most forgiving, docile, and small, meaning more can be housed for less space and money. In 2014, 19-year-old Ryan Walker stabbed one girl in the face and smashed another's head against a fence for calling him Harry Potter.
How many times do people have to be told to stop messing with the paranormal, supernature, and the dead? Why do I say this? Because there was a guy who decided to live stream and do some sort of seance and saying he doesn't believe in ghosts. What happened next will scare the living daylights out of you. Viewer discretion is advised.
Ini loh saudara lo nih, bawa sekalian ini.
Oh, hell no. Hell no. Look at that. This is as clear of an image as I can get off of that video. This is the problem when people tell you not to go out in the middle of anywhere and perform your own type of anything, to call upon anything that you shouldn't call upon, because what's going to happen sooner or later, it's going to show up. Now, one thing to keep in mind with the video, I did not see any watermark on the video that would illustrate to me that it was AI. It could be AI, but it sure as hell does not look like AI. And those screams from him were very, very, very genuine. That did not sound like a person that was faking and, oh, I'm scared. That sounded like a person that was terrified. So let me know your thoughts in the comments as to, do you think that video is genuine or do you think that it's AI? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and as always, I'd love to hear from you.
This is how rare your body actually is. Starting off, only 5% of people have tied tongues, so if you have this, you're pretty rare. Basically, this is where your tongue is tied to the bottom of your mouth, impacting your speech and eating. Next up is Morton's toe, and if you have this, you're probably pretty rare. Only 10% of the population has this, and this is where your index toe is bigger than your big toe. Okay, this next one is crazy. 1% of people actually have unbreakable bones. This is a genetic mutation which causes people's bones to be more dense than the average human. And one person who had this condition actually walked away from a car crash unharmed. Next, about 50% of people can fit their hand in their mouth. Sounds a bit high, so if you actually can, let me know. If you can tickle yourself, you're in the rare 7% of the population that can do this. About 10% of people suffer from eczema, which is a skin rash and is so annoying. And finally, we have the 16% of people that can make a roaring noise in their head by clenching their jaw.
Really weird human body facts that I can guarantee you didn't know. Your immune system doesn't actually know that your eyes exist. So this means that if you ever get an eye injury or an infection near your eyes, there's a chance that your immune system's gonna treat it like a foreign body and you could go blind. Some people, if they put something in one or both of their ears, will cough. It's called the Arnold cough reflex, and it only affects a very small percentage of people. It's time to stop. Just kidding. Did you know that you have enough potassium in your body to create a small bomb?
This teacher in Texas was fired after she defended pedophiles in class. This is Amber Parker from El Paso, Texas. She was 53 years old when this happened. A couple of years ago, Amber was caught on camera by a student in her class saying that they shouldn't refer to pedophiles as pedophiles. She told her students instead we should call them MAPs, or minor attracted persons. The video, honestly, is incredibly disturbing to me. I'm going to read you a quote from the video. Parker said, "Stop calling them pedophiles. You're not allowed to label people like that. Stop it, Diego. We're not going to call them that." She then added, "We're going to call them MAPs, minor attracted persons. So don't judge people just because they want to have sex with a 5-year-old. I mean, what goes through a person's mind when they make a comment like that to a class full of underage kids? It's absolutely reprehensible to me. And if there's one group of people that I have no empathy for myself, it's pedophiles who target young, vulnerable children. Now, when this video came out, this was huge national, international news, and immediately she was put on leave. After a while, the school district had some meetings, and they came back and terminated her position as a teacher, meaning that she would no longer be leading a class in discussions like this. I'm genuinely curious about this. What do you guys, the people who watch my TikToks, think we should refer to these people as? Should we call them MAPs? Or should we call them what I think we should call them? Pedophiles. Comment your answer. I'm genuinely curious.
Animal facts that'll make you see the world a little differently. The only reason tigers are orange is because the animals on their grocery list are Helen Keller to the color. So if you're something like a deer, this is what the biggest cat in the world and a striped Uber to the afterlife looks like. Polar bears have black skin. The only reason they look white is because their fur is translucent and hollow. And with hollow hair, light bounces off of them and reflects enough to look like an aggressive piece of snowdrift. Flamingos are naturally pink. The color comes from the carotenoid pigments in the shrimp and algae they eat. If they didn't eat it, they'd look like an IKEA kitchen, just 50 shades of bland. And if you move like Bugs Bunny and start ODing on carrots, the same thing can happen to you, but instead of pink, you turn a shade of orange. If you think an orca's eyes are here, you've fallen for their trap card. It's actually right there. The giant white patches are false eyes to trick any prey that tries to fight back. That's just devious. This is a black bear. Let me explain. This is a black bear with a mutation called leucism that basically turns it into a shiny Pokemon. Matter of fact, all three of these are black bears, and I can't even be mad. I'm black and I'm proud, but I'm black and I'm brown, at least according to Crayola. Bulls hating the color red is a myth. Mostly because bulls can't even see the color red, but chickens do, and because their instinct is to attack the color red, you're more likely to get pressed by a pack of poultry if you cosplay as the Kool-Aid Man. The more you know.
Go away. Don't come any closer. Coconut. Please just go away. Oh my god!
A young woman who once lived next door and was cared for by Australia's notorious babysitter killer has spoken out about the chilling memories that still haunt her, including a disturbing collection of teddy bears and an unsettling obsession with true crime shows. Aaliyah recalls being left alone with murderer Helen Patricia Moore, who was convicted of killing 3 children and attempting to murder 2 others while she was babysitting. Aaliyah said, "I still am in disbelief about it. I was around age 10 and had so many sleepovers at her house." She remembers that Moore was always on Facebook looking at true crime, saying she acted so against it like it made her sick and she couldn't believe how people could do that to children. It seems so ironic now.
Let's talk about what happened to 21-year-old Lauren McCluskey. So Lauren was born on February 12th of 1997 in Berkeley, California. She was known to be someone who was very caring. She cared about other people and her friendships. She was known to be an introvert, but as soon as you got to know her, she was full of things to talk about, and she cared about people a lot. Beyond athletics, she loved karaoke and dancing with her close friends. She decided to go to the University of Utah, and she was recruited to become a part of the women's track and field team. So Lauren was living in Salt Lake City for a few years when she met Melvin Rowland. So she met Melvin from a popular bar in downtown, and he was working as a bouncer. So he told her that he was in the military and he was trained as a security officer. So after that, they started hanging out a lot, and eventually Lauren found out that he was actually on parole and was on a sex offender list. So she confronted Melvin about this, and he confessed that this was true. And at the time, Lauren just said, "You know what, I do not want to continue this relationship." And that was it. She ended it. Unfortunately, Lauren started to receive a lot of text messages from him and threats from him, and even his friends were posting his suicide, which was fake, on social media and blaming Lauren for it. So Melvin would make frequent stops at her dorm to try to talk to her, and there was even this one time he demanded $1,000, and if she didn't give it to him, he was going to release explicit photos of them. So because all of this happening, she starts to get really scared, so she tells her family and close friends what's happening. So on October 12th of 2018, this officer named Officer Miguel Deras, he presented the case to the campus police to report that she's been harassed. So the police department, and including this officer, never investigate her claims. So this officer ends up calling Lauren, and he has like a strange request. He's asking for some like questionable and explicit photos from her that she mentioned in her case, which is kind of weird. So he ends up downloading those photos to his personal phone, and he's basically boasting to his colleagues about how he has these photos and how she's so cute, and it's just disgusting. So Lauren ends up talking to her friend Shelby Gonzalez, and she basically tells her that the police don't believe her about her crazy ex-boyfriend, and she just doesn't know what to do. On October 22nd of 2018, Melvin was waiting outside of Lauren's dorm for several hours for her to come home. Lauren was on the phone with her mom around 8:20 p.m. when he confronted her and ends up violently dragging her across the parking lot in front of her dorm. I'm running out of time, but stay tuned for part 2.
Is Iran next? The country's 92 million people are heading into their 6th day of an internet blackout. Their currency has collapsed to zero against the dollar. International calls and even electricity has been shut down in certain areas. Protests had spread to over 100 cities and all 31 provinces in the country. But as the crowds grow, so too does the loss of life. Footage, which we can't show on here, shows body bags lining the streets outside morgues in Tehran. At the low end, estimates say 650 have been killed so far. At the high end, some estimates are into the thousands. But this seems to have only angered people more, because in a stunning show of dissent at a funeral for those killed, where usually the ceremony would include chants of "There is no God but Allah," instead they were replaced with chants "Death to Khamenei," the country's supreme leader. So, is Iran next? Well, yesterday, the regime responded with an emphatic no. They decided to fight back and organize huge pro-government rallies attempting to show the world they still have support. And keep in mind, the current regime has been in power for over 3 decades, and they have faced even bigger protests in the past, but every single time they have weathered the storm. But one could argue the main difference now is they've never faced the Great Orange Storm. Trump has threatened military strikes. He's announced 25% tariffs on any country doing business with Iran. And he did just snatch a country's leader out of his bed in the middle of the night. So we are in unprecedented times. But Iran is very different. They've literally said they are prepared for war if that's what it comes to, and the US intervenes. But it's also not just the US. Protests have erupted in countries around the world in solidarity with the people of Iran. And so, for now, the world watches and waits to see.
Actress Lindsay Pearlman has been found dead in the Hollywood Hills area. Lindsay was 43 years old, and she is known for her roles on General Hospital, Empire, Chicago Justice, Sneaky Pete, The Purge series, and Selena the series. Lindsay was last seen on February 13th in East Hollywood. She was along the 1600 block of North Mariposa Avenue. She was then reported missing, and her family and friends, along with the LAPD, were asking for the public's help in locating her. And then at 8:30 this morning, police were called to a death investigation at Franklin and North Bonita Avenues, and they have confirmed the person to be Lindsay Pearlman. They haven't released any other details at this time, but we send so much love to her family and friends. Rest in peace, Lindsay.
Morbid Facts, Part 870. Chef Anthony Bourdain often described his life as something he wasn't supposed to still have. In the 1980s, while working as a chef in New York City, he fell into a severe heroin addiction, using daily, stealing from coworkers, and living in a constant state of physical and mental collapse. He later admitted he fully expected to die young during that period and was surprised he survived it at all. When fame arrived years later after writing Kitchen Confidential, Bourdain said that sudden success in many ways was more dangerous than addiction, giving him money, access, and non-stop travel that nearly pulled him back into self-destructive behavior. While filming No Reservations and Parts Unknown, he spent years moving through regions marked by executions, cartel violence, and war, repeatedly confronting death up close until he said it began to feel disturbingly ordinary. Even as his career thrived, Bourdain acknowledged that depression never truly left him, describing it as something that doesn't disappear but waits in the shadows, a statement that would take on a far darker meaning after he took his own life in 2018.
He went to check why the water wasn't running, and the reason why is horrifying. Late at night, Diego from TikTok had his water supply cut off. When he went to check the water meter, this happened.
No, yo no sé el agua. Iba a decir eso. ¿Se vio?
As he lifts the cover, he hears a growl and sees what looks like the face of a person. Is this the face of an unsettled spirit in that area, or is it something else?
Serial killer John George Haig mistakenly thought that if there's no bodies, you can't get caught. And so in the 1940s, he killed at least 6 people so that he could forge their signatures and sell their possessions for money. He would dispose of his victims in a large drum filled with sulfuric acid, and then he would pour the remains down a drain at his workplace. But when he moved, his new workplace didn't have a drain, so he resorted to dumping the remains in a trash pile outside in the back of his property. When investigators were closing in on him for the murders, they were actually able to find pieces of the bodies that hadn't dissolved in that pile, including 28 pounds of body fat. He was arrested and tried, and a jury took just minutes to find him guilty, and he was executed in 1949.
This girl took somebody's life just for fun. So the girl in this photo is named Alyssa Bustamante, and she had a pretty rough childhood growing up. Both of her parents ended up going to jail, so custody of her was given to her grandparents. After custody was given to her grandparents, her life changed for the better. She was said to have been in a much more stable environment. She was going to church, she wrote poetry. She overall just seemed like a normal kid. But as Alyssa was getting older, she started experimenting with her look and went into this emo kid phase, and unfortunately in 2007, she tried to take her own life. She would then spend the next 10 days in a mental institution, and she was also prescribed medication, but no matter how much she took, she still had a lot of depressive thoughts, and she would even mutilate herself. So after this happened, she really did try to portray a very positive persona in public and even in front of her grandparents, but when it came to her personality behind the scenes and online, she was said to have been a completely different person. She was pretty active on Twitter and would constantly express her hatred towards authority and her joy in unaliving people. She also had a YouTube channel where she ended up uploading a video where she tried to convince her two younger brothers to touch an electric fence. And on October 21st, 2009, things took a very dark turn. This is Elizabeth Olton, and she was just 9 years old, and she was actually a neighbor of Alyssa's. She was said to have lived just 4 doors down. She would regularly go over to Alyssa's home to play with Alyssa and her two younger brothers, and on that particular night, she was said to have asked her mother for permission to go over to Alyssa's house. Her mom says okay, but also tells her to be home by 5 p.m. And then when 6 o'clock came around and her daughter Elizabeth still wasn't home, that's when she got worried and called the police. Police obviously interrogate Alyssa about what happened, and she tells them that she had nothing to do with it. She had no idea what was going on. Police search the house, and in the backyard, they discover what seemed to be dug up plots, but Alyssa just tells them that she likes to dig holes for fun. And police search her bedroom, and they discover her journal entries, and one particular journal entry was very disturbing. Essentially, it detailed exactly what she did to Elizabeth, and police would later discover Elizabeth's body buried in one of the holes in Alyssa's backyard. The journal entry basically described how she brutally unalived Elizabeth, and then also went on to say how it was a sensational experience. She went on to say that it was rather entertaining, and after it was done, she said that she had to go to church. How ironic. Eventually, she would tell the court what happened, and the court decided that they would try her as an adult. And a few weeks before her trial was set to start, Alyssa was said to have agreed to a plea bargain which gave her 30 years sentence instead of the death penalty.
This was the moment Icelandic singer Björk crashed out at Bangkok Airport in 1996, lunging at reporter Julie Kaufman and knocking her to the ground, moments after the reporter simply greeted her with the words, "Welcome to Bangkok." What appeared to be an explosive reaction to a harmless greeting was later explained by Björk as a breaking point. She claimed Kaufman had stalked her and her 9-year-old son for days across multiple locations, ignoring requests to stop. Björk said the airport encounter triggered fear for her child's safety. Kaufman denied any stalking, no charges were filed, and the footage became one of the most infamous celebrity confrontations of the 90s. On April 16, 2014, the South Korean ferry Sewol capsized and sank off the coast of Jindo while carrying 476 people, most of them high school students on a field trip. An abrupt turn combined with overloaded cargo caused the ship to list and rapidly flood. Passengers were repeatedly told over the intercom to stay where they were. Instructions most of them followed as water quickly filled the decks. The captain and several crew members abandoned ship early, leaving hundreds trapped inside. The ferry sunk in roughly 2 hours, killing 304 people, the majority of them teenagers. The captain was convicted of gross negligence and murder by omission and sentenced to life in prison, while multiple crew members and shipping company officials received prison terms.
Why did Scott Peterson kill his pregnant wife, Lacey? The prosecution's successful argument was that Scott killed Lacey so that he could be with his secret girlfriend, Amber. First of all, I don't think Scott was that into Amber. They'd only been together for 2 months. He gave her flowers and acted like he wanted a future together, but y'all, I can testify, there are plenty of situations where a man will act like he's serious and then just disappear. Players will play, and Scott was a career player. The defense had actually argued that because Scott had cheated on Lacey multiple times before Amber, that this was actually proof that he didn't do it. Being married hadn't stopped him before, so why now would it lead to murder? I think the real reason is that Scott did not want to be a father. He had expressed to multiple people that he did not want kids. Lacey had called her mom a few months before she got pregnant, saying that her and Scott had gotten into an argument because he didn't want to have kids and she did. But when she got pregnant, he seemed to change his tune. Which again, typical behavior for a liar and player. When a friend had asked Scott if he was hoping for a baby girl or boy, Scott had joked, "Well, I was hoping for infertility." He also didn't like feeling the baby kick inside his wife's belly. And a mind-blowing fact is that Lacey was set to give birth on Amber's birthday. On February 10th, Scott's worlds would be colliding and he would not be able to hide it. He did not want this baby or the commitment that came with it. And sadly, murder by the child's father is the #1 cause of death for pregnant women. Let me know your thoughts. I'll be posting a few more videos on this case, so follow so you don't miss it.
3 paranormal videos you should never watch alone.
My daughter has informed me that there is a person in her closet that keeps smiling at her. Let's go see.
Open it. That's a person.
There's a person?
Yeah.
Can you show me where the person is?
Right here. Right here. Right here.
Is it Elsa?
No. No.
No?
I'm scared.
You're scared?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you show me where the person is? Is it a kid person or a grown-up person?
Grown-up person.
It's a grown-up person?
I want your Elmo.
You want to wear your Elmo costume?
Yeah.
Okay. There's a grown-up person in your closet?
Yeah.
And it's right there?
Yeah. It's my closet.
It's your closet. Say, go away, person.
I'm scared.
You're scared?
Yeah. I'm a person.
Okay, well, we'll get rid of the person.
Let's see.
Ok, nå har jeg begynt. Har du begynt? Hva skal vi begynne med? Hva skal vi si først? Hei. Vet du, jeg tør ikke å stå, jeg må sette meg. Skal du si god dag eller hei? Julie, skal man si hei først? Nå så har jeg lyst. Ja, jeg tror dere må liksom invitere den da, på en måte. Ja, vi må si hei da, hilse. Ok. Stav, hei. Ja. Hei. Det går ikke da. Det var det mye. Fy faen, ass. Du sa jo at det skal være slutt. Ta ned på god dagen. Det er ikke lekser, det går ikke. Shit! Kødder du nå? Se det. Det dingler. Fy faen. Helvete, hele den driten dingler jo. Fy faen. Vi tar et til da. Sjekka. Gi oss et tegn.
Something is watching me. If you've had the feeling, you know what I'm talking about. I'm playing only up in my office. Something keeps passing by this window. I just propped up the phone here and I'm gonna play. If you're walking by my office, I want you to knock it off. Holy. Is that you making all that noise back there? This thing's always closing doors. You need to get out. Dude. Will you knock it off, please? You gotta get out. You're gonna lock yourself in the laundry room again? You're not leaving? You're not gonna turn the phone.
This woman convinced thousands of people that
themselves was obedience to God, and she built an entire weight loss cult around it. Trigger warning for anyone recovering or currently suffering with an ED. Gwen Shamblin, born Gwen Henley, was born February 18th of 1955 in Tennessee. Some sources claim she was an only child, while others say that she was the second youngest of 4 children. What is consistent is that she was raised in an allegedly devout Christian household. From childhood, Gwen was a member of the Church of Christ, a denomination known for its strict biblical authority, conservative doctrine, rigid New Testament interpretation, traditional gender roles, and a heavy emphasis on obedience to scripture. In the 1970s, Gwen attended high school, and this is where the story already starts to unravel. Gwen repeatedly claimed that she was overweight throughout high school and into university, describing herself as pretty much a glutton who struggled endlessly with food. But Gwen has a documented pattern of exaggeration, contradiction, and outright fabrication, so you can't really believe anything she says. In fact, sources say her own high school photos show her not overweight at all, and she was a cheerleader. After high school, Gwen earned an undergraduate degree in dietetics from the University of Tennessee in Knoxville, followed by a master's degree in food and nutrition with an emphasis on biochemistry from Memphis State University. She later became a registered dietitian, which led her to working as a consultant and faculty member at Memphis State University. In 1978, Gwen married David Shamblin, and together they had 2 children, Michael and Elizabeth. Around this time period, Gwen began developing her own diet plan. Keep in mind, she had just graduated, yet she was already presenting herself as an expert, telling people that she had struggled with weight her entire life and had finally conquered it. She was carefully crafting an image of someone who had once been out of control with food and miraculously mastered it. Then, in 1986, Gwen Shamblin officially launched the Way Down Workshop. She didn't present it as simple weight loss, it was framed as a faith-based program. Her core teaching was that people needed to stop focusing on food altogether and redirect that attention entirely to God. And this is where things begin to turn very dark. The Way Down program began as a 12-week seminar distributed through VHS tapes and audio tapes. From the very beginning, the entire workshop was built around restriction and starvation, with zero real consideration for underlying health conditions. It targeted not only people who were overweight, but also people who weren't, and even children. There was no legitimate medical backing to it, and it was never evidence-based. At its core, the program stemmed almost entirely from Gwen's own extreme fat phobia. People who have actually read the original Way Down Workshop book consistently describe it as deeply disturbing. She was intensely hyper-focused on outward appearance, thinness, and control. The language itself is very alarming, and once you read it, you start to understand how dangerous it really was. For someone actively following the program, the psychological manipulation didn't take long. The teaching slowly trained participants to scan themselves for flaws, to feel constant guilt, shame, and dissatisfaction with their bodies. This is where the brainwashing began. You weren't just losing weight, you were being conditioned to distrust your hunger, your instincts, and eventually yourself. Gwen explicitly taught that overeating was a sin, and she claimed food addiction needed to be replaced with an addiction to God. But what she was really promoting was an addiction to starvation, self-denial, and obedience, while positioning herself as the spiritual authority, even claiming to be a prophet of God. It was framed as Christian doctrine, but in practice it functioned as control. God became sort of interchangeable with Gwen, and became proof of righteousness. What started as a few small Way Down classes taught out of Gwen Shamblin's garage didn't stay small for long. It moved from garages to malls, then into churches, and once it got inside the churches, it spread fast, like a disease. The growth was genuinely insane. By 1994, the program was being offered in roughly 600 churches across 35 states. Within just 1 year, that number jumped to 1,000 churches in 49 states, expanding into Canada and Great Britain. 2 years later, it had exploded into 5,000 churches. And by that point, members were being encouraged to host the program inside their own homes. That's when it stopped being a workshop and started functioning like a recruitment pipeline. The program quickly turned into a full-blown business, employing over 40 staff members. And Gwen began hosting large annual seminar conventions structured almost exactly like multi-level marketing conferences. This wasn't accidental. The hierarchy, the recruitment model, the emotional buy-in, it followed the the same blueprint. By 1998, the Way Down Workshop claimed over 250,000 members. It became so massive that Gwen didn't even appear at many events anymore. Instead, she shifted to videotapes and DVDs, allowing her teachings to keep spreading without her physically being there. The program took off the way it did largely because it hit during the 1990s obsession with thinness and diet culture. Gwen did not care about the damage being done to people's bodies. She wasn't concerned with health, she was concerned with control, money, and eliminating fat people. She openly believed her program could cure anorexia and bulimia, and she also claimed that it could cure drug and alcohol addictions. Despite having no credentials, training, or authority to make those claims, her primary tools were shame, guilt, and fear, and she taught that hunger wasn't a biological signal, it was spiritual. And if you ate outside of what she called God's hunger, she claimed that you were listening to Satan. One of her teachings stated, when you decide I'm going to eat, but you're not at God's hunger point, you've listened to Satan. She encouraged followers to ignore hunger until it became painful, and then, and only then, eat the smallest portion possible. Pain was reframed as righteousness, starvation became obedience, and obedience became proof of faith. And this is only the beginning, because next comes her church, which still exists today, then comes absolute power, isolation, violence, a murder case, and even her own son publicly exposing her. What started as a Christian weight loss program turned into something much darker, something that wasn't even Christian. It turned into her own religion, and it gets so much worse. Come back for part 2.